In a short stretch of time from the mid-90s to the early 2000s, a relatively small group of people started playing around with this thing called the World Wide Web. They had the audacity to think they just might change the world. This project introduces you to the OG players from those hallowed days and lets them tell you what it was like and how you should have been there. Episode 6. Today we're going to talk to Jeff and Craig, the founders of Razorfish, purveyors of the blue dot. It's going to be amazing. Happy New Year.
This is going to be so much fun. You know how long it's been to talk to Jeff and Craig. I mean, I didn't know Craig as well as you may have, but I certainly have some great stories about Jeff in those days. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Happy New Year, Kyle. Happy New Year. I hope you have a great New Year. Yes.
Yeah. Happy New Year to you. No, fantastic. So far, so good. Well, good. Other than, the insurrection. But
I know.
We're a few days past that.
Right? This is going to be the 1 hour of just pure fun for a change, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, you can ignore all that. Just watch this. It's going to be good. This is also our first non-agency.com guest. So I'm super excited about that. So we'll get him on in a second. Okay, some house cleaning before we get started. So if you want to see past episodes, go to youshoulda.com. If you're watching this live, you're likely on Facebook or YouTube. You see it there. So please go to You Shoulda. You can see all the back stuff from there and more information, who's coming up. The other thing, this is super important. If you're watching and you know these guys, you can heckle. Ritesh will be seeing your comments as you type them in. So feel free to share comments, and we'll pull your comments up and probably trigger some stories and things like that. And then finally, this is super important because we want to be influencers, but we're not quite there yet. Especially if you're on YouTube, I think we need 22 or 23 more.
23 more, please. 23 more.
Please subscribe on YouTube. Yeah. And then we can get our own vanity URL. Right now, it's just gobbledygook because that's life in the big city when you're not an influencer. So anyway, with that, let's bring on Craig and Jeff and gentlemen.
Hello.
Hello there.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going. What a crazy week we've had, but it's so good to come and hang out for an hour and just have a bit of fun, right?
Absolutely.
So we're talking about Kim and Kanye. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I was just lost. But I did say
my world is upside down.
Yeah, I sent Kim a note saying I'm available if if your heart is broken, I'm ready to mend it for you. So.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So for those that don't know, Craig and Jeff were co-founders of Razorfish. I would say, for me, one of the reasons I'm so excited to have you on, I wanted to kick off the new year this way. I feel such a kinship with both of you because I feel like agency.com and Razorfish, while we were super rivals and sort of from personality standpoints, we were kind of opposite sides of the coin. But we also had such incredibly parallel paths, right? We had Urban Desires, you had Blue Dot, we were doing big corporate clients, you were doing like hip, music stuff and design stuff. Like it was just, and our growth path was really similar. So it's just amazing to have you. So I so much appreciate you being on to this little experiment. Back in the day, we were trying to figure out what the internet was. And I don't know, now we're experimenting with live shows on the internet. So welcome and thank you.
Oh, man.
Good to be here.
Yeah, Happy New Year. This is great. Really excited to see you guys, and thanks for having us.
Yeah. Perfect. All right, so let's jump in. So where we like to start, I know this is radical, is at the beginning. And I know. So
and it's all Kyle's idea, by the way, to start at the beginning.
Yeah, it's true. Well, people, every time I would tell an agency.com story, people would say, you should write a book. And then I finally realized after 50 years, I don't have the attention span to write a book, but I could probably do a TV show. It's because capturing the stories actually seems important now that my brain is starting to go. So anyway, yeah. So, I mean, the thing about Razorfish is kind of when we came on the scene and we're coming up, you were there. Like, I kind of feel like we just kind of emerged at a really similar time, but I don't actually know your origin story. So I would love to just hear, I don't care who goes first, you can battle it out. But like, how did it begin? Like, what were you doing, leading up to that? And how did it all begin for you guys?
You want to go first? Or?
Yeah, I mean, look, I can, we have So the first thing is Jeff and I knew each other growing up, right? So we went to neighboring elementary school, same synagogue, same summer camp, same youth group. Were buddies during high school, and then lost touch when we went to college because there was no internet or cell phones, and that's the only way to stay in touch with people was to write letters. So that didn't happen. But
I wasn't going to write you a letter.
Yeah, really. So I think
Not even
during
from
that time, so during that time we went and did different things, obviously, and my path there was I studied computer science and philosophy, and went and worked in a software company, and then went to the MIT Media Lab and got a degree in visual studies from MIT. Graduated and came to New York to figure out what was going to be next for me and try to find things, and met a handful of people. And I was trying to think of the guy's name was David Cherry, I think, and somebody else. I can't remember the people's name, but I went to go see these guys who were setting up a CD-ROM based magazine. Or DVD-ROM magazine, right? Or
magazine.
One of those. And the idea was you were going to subscribe to a little platter rather than a stack of papers.
Yeah.
And
you get the monthly, and it was actually bi-monthly because you were actually launching software. One of those,
right? And it was paid for by Felix Dennis, who had made a shit ton of money on
the Maxim magazine.
Maxim magazine.
Oh, right.
Magazines in the UK, and this was his foray into the US. And I was helping these guys literally take their computers out of their boxes and plug them in, just kind of like, I don't know, is there something for me to do here? Maybe, maybe not. And I said I was from Minneapolis. And I believe, and I don't want to tell your story, Jeff, but I think Jeff was in there like the day before, similar thing, like, what are you guys up to? Do you need someone to help with marketing? What's going on? And they called Jeff and gave Jeff my phone number. And I came home and Jeff was on my answering machine. So the first time in 5 years I had heard from him.
Wow.
Went over to his apartment in East Village and talked about what we were up to. And I had been doing some freelance work for a small software company, really small, a 3-person sort of digital design company up in Westport, Connecticut, designing ads for Prodigy and some other, little digital things. Actually, one of our really fun gigs was we got hired by IBM to work on a little project that when you took a PC out of the box and plugged it in, a screen popped up and said, "Thank you for buying me. Can you please tell me what time it is so I can set the clock?"
So you got to build that little experience.
So I built that little startup screen, and when I was commuting from New York City up to Westport, didn't really want to do that. Thought I can get my own clients, I can do these things, and then I hooked up with Jeff and showed him what web browsers were and it was like that, because I remember explicitly sitting in your living room on Avenue C and you saying, "Wait, so right now who's looking at that page, and that they're in Michigan." And so instead of the typical response was, "Okay, nerd," this was like, "Wow, this has value. This is amazing."
Yeah.
And then I don't want to say the rest is history, but we chatted about starting a company together. And I'll jump to a relatedAgency.com story about 6 months later. And then Jeff, you should tell where you were first. But I was invited to speak at an internal conference at Time Warner by a guy named Larry Gagler, who was in charge of the telephone system and the email system. And he asked me to come and show some of the web design work that I had been doing for this small company up in Connecticut. And I believe that the person who spoke after me was Chan, showing how he was breaking all sorts of corporate rules by selling ads on Vibe.com.
So true.
And we were in the same room at the same time. And there was a guy in the audience named Sean Callahan. And he was
Sean Callahan.
Sean Callahan. He was an editor at GQ magazine, and he also was very involved with the Time Life gardening book series that was advertised on television.
Yep. Remember
and
that.
After that meeting, he got in touch with Jeff and I about building a little website for the New York Botanical Gardens, which was going to be part of Time Warner's Pathfinder giant thing that they were going to do to try to sell Time Life books.
Yep.
And so I don't know if it's actually true. Chan's watching. He would have to chime in, but I believe that Chan went home and started agency.com that afternoon, and Jeff and I basically started Razorfish like 4 days later. So
wow, that's great. That's awesome.
That is an incredible serendipity thing, right?
Yeah.
Imagine that.
I mean, it really is just this parallel thing, because it was, Chan and I were both, I was doing Urban Desires, he was doing Vibe, and then we just said, hey, he said we should go make websites for these big companies because they don't seem to have them. I keep trying to sell them ads, but they don't have websites. so Jeff is.
Let's have your version of it now. Is it true what Craig said?
Largely, I think so. Trying to think if I have any memories of anything different. I had been thinking about how digital was sort of changing things in a lot of ways. I had been involved in almost every form of ideation, production, distribution, and monetization of media formats, and I'd been involved in all of them. I sucked at everything. I was awful at every form of creative expression that you could muster. I did it and was bad at it.
You knew how to launch Photoshop, but that was about it.
Yeah, pretty much. And subsequently, as things, you could feel it. I'm going to describe it, in a way that I know you guys understand. But like in '92 and '93 and '94, you could start to feel what you would term as today as convergence happening.
Yeah,
where digital stuff, the ability to produce, distribute and monetize digital stuff was all coming together, whereas in the past, all of those functions had been separate. Printing presses made magazines. Magazines got put on trucks to get sent to newsstands. Newsstands where you bought the magazine, and the production, distribution, and monetization of those ideas that show up in a magazine or in a TV show or in a radio show or in a any other form of a theatrical event or a movie or DJing at the club. All of those things started to come together in digital, in some way, shape, or form early on. And so I could feel it, and I knew that I knew that I sucked at all of these other things, but what I was good at is putting it together.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's kind of the ultimate skill back then, right? Because you had to bring stuff from all these other disciplines.
Yeah, and so that the liberal arts degree or whatever turned out to be kind of handy.
Turned out to be a good thing. My acting degree still is not a good thing, but hey.
Yeah, but you know how to do CSS well, Kyle.
I know how to act like a CEO.
Yeah. So there you are, Jeff. You're going through all this, right?
And I was hungry. Craig and I went to school, and we went to Hebrew school and summer camp with another group of folks, a guy named Bob Roback and Dave Goldberg, who ended up founding a CD-ROM magazine called Launch.
Right.
And if you know Dave Goldberg, he passed away, but he went on to marry Sheryl Sandberg and be part of SurveyMonkey and all of that. But my point in all of this is that there was something going on, and I wanted to be involved in it, And so my brother and I had worked on a company which we had taken public a couple of years before, and I had to sort of wet my beak a little bit with the capital markets. But I knew this convergence of digital media, digital stuff was happening, and I wanted to be involved in it in some ways. So after hustling around looking at stuff, I bumped into the folks at Blender. With David Shearer and his team. And there was a woman named Regina Joseph, if you guys recall that.
Regina, sure.
And Regina's, I had a job at, and this is just strange, at TVT Records with a guy named Steve Gottlieb at TVT Records. I kept pushing on Steve, and by proxy, a woman that worked with him, Patricia Joseph, Regina's sister, that we needed to be a digital record label. and Steve basically he fired me. I mean, he fired me.
What do you know about that?
I got fired. And hi, Steve, if you're watching, he and I, Steve Ballard and I are great friends. But subsequently, getting fired from there, and then Patricia Joseph from Regina Joseph, and then David Cherry, and then Blender. I bump into Craig, and we got together, and he showed me the internet, and I was like, this is going to change society. This is going to change the world, and we've got to start a business right now.
I kind of feel like everyone that started that early, like where it was just coming up, that just had a sense that something was bigger. Like, I think that's why we all jumped into it kind of blindly, because it was just kind of that magical thing. I always felt, and this seemed like, I've talked to a lot of other people about this from that time, I always felt really lucky. Like, did you guys have a sense of how lucky you were to be there that early and in doing it? Did you have that sense?
I did. I mean, I think that, look, we by definition, we were lucky because we were able to be at the beginning of something that was small. And, if you're
something that was big, that was small. Right,
but you were at it when it was small, right? So if you try to break into the airline market now, you're gonna have a hard time. You try to break into a smaller industry at the beginning. If you're good, you can. It's just easier to grab, to have influence over that. So absolutely, we were very lucky to be at the time, at the place that we were at. That's not to say that there were plenty of other people that were there at exactly the same time that didn't end up being successful because they didn't have the skill or the drive or the talent or any of those things. But absolutely, the universe conspired to create some conditions for us at the right time.
Yeah.
So let me ask a question on that. So, because Kyle, I've heard this from you and Chan, that when you guys were, particularly you, Kyle, as you were working on this, that there was this moment, just like Jeff said, oh, this is going to be huge and we have to do something. There was that moment. But it seemed to me, having come from the UK, that it was in New York, which was the other interesting thing, because prior to that, a lot of that stuff was still Silicon Valley based, and we still see the Valley, but this was really happening in New York. So was this another piece of that there was this, and Jeff, you're nodding your head, so please tell me, it was New York at the heart of this, right? Yeah,
I mean, without a doubt, New York at the time, was a great place to be. You had this convergence of fashion and advertising and media and finance and telecom and insurance and modeling and music and all of the things that you need to do, the alchemy that you need to have really creative people who are passionate about things, who are pursuing those passions all in the same place at the same time. You had drum and bass music, you had the cyberpunks, you had Jamie Lee, you had all this stuff, you had Josh Harris, you had all this stuff coming together in literally a couple of square blocks downtown. And if you weren't downtown and you weren't going out, every night or whenever to hang out with people, and you weren't seeing the flyers or the wheat paste stuff, or you weren't seeing and reading the right magazines at the right moment, you weren't in the scene. And so there was definitely this scene that spurred this competition and co-opetition and friendly excitement about the burgeoning digital thing.
Yeah, who was doing what, who was figuring what out. And I think that like the California New York split, I felt like the New York scene was much more about, okay, all this technology has been created, now what can we do with it that's really interesting, right? Out of from a cultural point of view. And I feel like so let's kind of shift gears. Let's move into
wait, hang on before you shift gears. Razorfish. What the heck? How'd you come up with the name?
Look, we came with the name. Look, we were extremely. We did what anyone does when they name things, right? So we did a typical creative process. We generated huge lists of names and narrowed them down, and most of them sucked, and then we added more, and most of them sucked, and we had a deadline. So this client, Sean, he hired us to build that website, And he said, you got to pick a company name by Friday because, you know, I can't give you cash. I'm not paying you personally.
Right.
So pick a name. But, you know, Jeff had an old landline telephone that was unplugged, and we would pick one on the list, and we'd answer the phone like 50 times and be like, oh my God, I'm so sick of that name already. We can't do that. I mean, technically Razorfish, the word, showed up while we were flipping through dictionaries and pointing at words. That's how it got on the list. But you know, we analyzed it, you know, like we did all the other names, and we're like, okay, it conveys a sense of, you know, it's flexible. It's got a Z in there. It's kind of edgy. People don't know what it is. You know, you can associate a bunch of things. It was very clear we did not want to put our names on the company door. It was not about us. It was about the organization. Despite the fact that we did go out and try to get a lot of publicity for the organization, but we didn't want it to be about us. We didn't want it to be tied to a technology or tied to anything really that people had an association with. We wanted it to be flexible. So that's where the name came from.
Rock on. Thank you.
Great. That's
Sorry,
great.
I interrupted Kyle. Carry on.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, talk about the sort of the cultural impact. You know, you had Blue Dot, so you had this corporate project that allowed you to do sort of, you know, non-business specific, you know, expression, and then you had Razorfish, right? So just talk about, you know, what were those early years like? What was it like? You know, you get your first job. How did Blue Dot come about? Like, just sort of start to unpack.
And then hiring some of the first employees, because, you know, right now there's two of you. You're leading off each other, probably feeding off each other, doing this thing, and now you got to start hiring people and offices. I mean, it starts that process, right?
Yeah, we didn't really know. You know, we had sort of three categories of things that we knew this business could become. You know, we knew that it could be some form of, you know, technology services. We knew that it could be some form of content. And then we knew that it could be some form of software. In fact, we had early, you know, call it web tracking software that we had built. What we thought, which, you know, and it turns out that the services component of the business was the one that we were the least excited about. But the one that we knew would likely generate the kind of traction and business opportunity. Correct me if I'm wrong, Craig.
No, that's totally right. And I think, you know, the Blue Dot was just look, agencies, when they want to get hired, typically have a portfolio of work that helps stand for their skill set. And you know, we were hired by Time Warner for an extremely conservative project.
Right.
And I remember even saying, you know, to the client, like, you want to sell Time Life books, why don't you sell the books online? And, you know, an argument ensued. It was like, no one's going to type their credit card into a web page.
Right.
And we said this, but people read it aloud over a phone. They're like, oh, that's different. That's different. So look, we had 2 or 3 clients, 8 clients, whatever it was. Look, we have some of my freelance work. I was very fortunate to be able to bring some of that in. I happened, you know, want to talk about luck. I happened to be at the right place at the right time to design one of the first internet ads, the first banner ads, because the firm that I was working for in Connecticut got hired by Moda Media down the street.
Yep.
I happened to know Brian Bellendorf, who's the webmaster at hotwire.com, which is where the ad was going to be. And, you know, so we had some portfolio pieces, but at the end of the day, we didn't have enough to say, we can do this and we can do this and we can do this. So there was a combination of, I want to be an artist. I want to self-express, and I want to see how we can hack this technology. My program at MIT, the Media Lab, was really focused on, don't use the technology the way it's supposed to be used. Break apart the Xerox machine, put some dog fur in there, and put it back together. You know, fill the inkwell with spaghetti sauce and see what happens, right? So this was the same sort of idea of, like, you've got this very, very rudimentary set of tools. HTML. What can you do?
Exactly.
And, you know, and that became, so the Blue Dot was a playground. It was also a way for us to do our own self-expression. I think equally important. From the beginning, I would say that there was a large percentage of us, and you're in that group, that wanted the internet to be a beautiful place. I mean, this banner ad that I created, right? An artistic place. This banner ad that I created, you know, when you clicked on it, it took you to 12 online art galleries. It didn't take you to AT&T corporate website to try to sell you a long distance plan.
Yeah.
You know, we wanted to, my whole goal was to try to make technology beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And to make it usable and acceptable and not have it be this burdensome, hideously ugly thing. You know, you have to use the ATM machine. It's like, well, why can't the ATM machine be beautiful?
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to create art, and we knew artists in New York City, and and we both pitched them on, hey, let's put your portfolio online. Let's build build an art gallery online. Let's build this online. And you know, you did that. We did that. Avalanche was doing that. It was like, how do we show people how beautiful this can be, and how do we bring artists who could use some PR and some exposure out to the world and say, like, these artists are great. You should know about them. Yeah. So I think that was where the a lot of the Blue Dot stuff came from.
Yeah. No, it was the same. And we would ask. We would sort of ask internally or ask clients, what do you want? And we'd realize, well, they don't know what they want. Like, nobody knows what they want because no one's done this before. So for us, Urban Desires was a place where we could turn the technologists and the creatives loose and say, go pick a section or go pick an article and like figure some crap out. And then because you literally can't screw it up over there. And then what would invariably happen would be like, oh, that's a really interesting approach. Let's bring that into, some corporate thing.
It seems to me the modem media guys were the ones who were benefiting from all this because you guys worked with modem. I think, Kyle, you and Chan did something with the modem guys as well, right?
Yeah, we did the Zima freezer was the first subcontracting job, and then we said we'll never do another subcontracting job again. And we won MetLife from them. So yeah, it was the modem media boys. Those were some good guys.
They were some smart dudes, I guess.
That crew was OG, but they were thinking about modem media was really rooted not necessarily in the web, really rooted in that those Prodigy, CompuServe, and AOL ads. We had never thought about getting into the ad business ever. Yeah, one of the sort of ongoing sayings at Razorfish was always, build the thing, not the thing about the thing.
That's great.
And we always believed that ads were a thing about the thing, and we wanted to build the thing. And so we weren't interested in building ads about a stock trading experience. We wanted to build the stock trading experience. We didn't want to build ads about a thing. We wanted to build the thing. And that was really kind of the beginning of Razorfish's core business in building out businesses, not building out advertising that supported businesses.
So now you're off, right? You're off and growing. It's 1996, 97. And now, the whole world is starting to figure out that there's something big going on here. You're some of the early pioneers of all this. What started to change? How did you start sort of growing Razorfish? And did you stay true to, or try and stay true to, that vision of build the thing, Jeff?
Yes. Well, first and foremost, we still struggled, as I'm sure you did. Well, there was a turning point, and I don't know exactly when it was. It might have been in 98, might have even been in 99, but where you didn't have to explain what the World Wide Web was. Every presentation, right? Yeah. Every single presentation that you gave up until whatever the date was, I'm going to call it mid 97 or
it was around mid 97,
or whatever that was. Every single time you had to go in and take 15 minutes and explain what online was.
You'd carry in your computer to show them what online was.
And so you asked me, when did the business kind of, what was, whatever moment that was when we were no longer having to explain what getting online was or why it was going to be important or powerful. That ushered in sort of a turning point. I think there were other turning points, which we share with agency.com, where a woman named Felice Kincannon knocked on our door from a group called Communicade, which was a shell that Omnicom had created to invest in digital companies like ours. And there was a thorough vetting process of 150 companies or something. And it turned out that we were among the top 6 that Communicade was interested in investing in. And I think at that moment in I think it was in the summer, I forgot when it was, of 1996, when Omnicom made that bet on all of us. I think it sort of separated some of the wheat from the chaff, if you will, and it allowed us to not only have the marketing presence in the marketplace because of Omnicom's sort of stamp of approval.
Yeah, the validation.
But the deal that we did allowed us they didn't make any investment in the company. I don't. For you guys, it might have been different, but for Craig and I, they didn't put the money in the company. And so, from our perspective, one, we got the marketing branding, but 2, we got the freedom to kind of think about things that didn't involve us paying our rent. Meaning, we were less concerned with that and got to really sort of focus all of our energy and all of our passion on the business. One of the smartest things John Wren could have done was structure the deal, at least for me, that way. And then lastly, he gave us an operating line of credit. That allowed us to borrow money from Omnicom and grow the business in such a huge way.
Yep.
Which we paid back, by the way, all of that money and then some.
And then some. What were the projects that you did? I would say, like, the early stuff was all that exploratory stuff, but now you're funded, now you're established. What were the projects that you did where, you said, we want to build the thing, not the thing that takes you to the thing? Like, what were some of the things that you built that you were particularly proud of or felt like, holy crap, we got to do that? Like, for us, we did the Sirius satellite radio, we did British Airways, the ticketing stuff, which was not possible. Like, what were those things that you did that were like, holy crap, we did that, or we got to do that?
Oh, I think the first one that comes to mind is we'll probably both agree, was building Schwab.com.
Yeah.
First of all, we were in, this was a revolution in the stock market too.
Yeah.
And day trading and IPOs and all sorts of, companies going public, like the stock
right. It was going crazy.
Was going nuts.
Yeah.
And Schwab came to us and we built basically a consumer portal for people to go on and buy and sell stocks and access your accounts. And they were the first financial institution to really move into the digital era. Like, you couldn't go onto Chase.com or Citibank.com and check your balance or look at your, pay online bills or do any of those things.
That's right.
And so it did a bunch of things for us, not the least of which is we had to integrate a front end platform that we built with a federally controlled, probably
mainframe,
Fortran, mainframe financial services that needed to be 24/7, no lag. We're talking about people's money, right? It's one thing to build a website for
money as well, right?
And be like, oh, come see the new marketing.
Come be marketing.
Yeah. This was a place where people put their dollars.
Yeah.
And so for us, it was an unbelievable opportunity to build something that had a massive technology program. Second piece of it was we worked with a company that was embracing digital in their industry before anybody else, way before anybody else, in a massive way. And at least those two components of it, not to mention the fact that, like, some of the designs still stand the test of time. Like, we had great people. It was by far and away the largest project that we did. And I know that this is sort of the lore of telling this. It's like, wow, we did this project. I can't believe it's this many people for this many lines of code. And then 3 days later, you're like, wait, we just got one that's twice as big? Because I know you're talking about,
we talked about that last show. Yeah.
Right, totally. In the last show. So it's like that happened. But that was I don't know if it was 9 months or a year, but it was probably the first project that took that long, that had that many people, where we had people in the New York team, in San Francisco team. Like, it was a really, for me, that was a touchstone, milestone, like, iconic project for us.
Yeah, that's huge. Did you have to deal with a lot of the political sort of infighting within that organization? So not only were you sort of, smashing this Fortran mainframe to the front end, were you having to deal with any of the political stuff on the back end with them?
The different departments that needed to be involved, like IT,
Yes,
saying,
yes
do you
and
want to
no.
do what? Yeah.
You know, at Schwab, we kind of had the right levels of executive and strategic buy-in.
Oh, that's great.
So that was I'm going to say a relatively, smooth project. But I know exactly what you're talking about, because in essence, you bump into the politics of large organizations all the time, and especially in the early days, you had the internet evangelist at the company, but no one else supported him.
Yeah,
I was going to tell that. I told you the story last night, Jeff. So Kyle, we were at an Omnicom event in London, mm-hmm. where we presented to a bunch of London Omnicom clients at the offices of Imagination.
Okay.
This incredible experience design firm.
Yep.
And we had just spent about 4 months doing an intranet, an internal project for British Airways. So they were your client on the front, and we were doing an intranet thing. And I talked to our client there, and I said, so what's going on at the company? Like, how is this project being perceived? And he said, Craig, let me tell you, about a third of the company thinks this is the most amazing, important thing that we've ever done.
Yeah.
And they are totally in support. Another third of the company thinks that this is a waste of money and it'll never get done and it's ridiculous. And the other third don't give a shit because they won't be here by the time the project is over. And I was sort of like, so we're fighting 2/3 of the company.
Yeah.
Right? So it's impressive that you bring that up, because even though we didn't have to explain what the internet was by 98, mm-hmm. we still had to justify why people were spending millions of dollars on it.
Yeah. We had, we had those situations where the people that hired us were, evangelist, champions, believers, and they would say, well, we want, our website to do X, Y, Z. And then we would go look at it and we would realize, well, for the website to do X, Y, and Z, then Division A actually needs to talk to Division B. And they'd be like, oh, they haven't talked in 20 years, right? So we ended up, like, I felt as things got more sophisticated, we shifted as much into a consulting role as an agency role. Like,
this is where I will give Jeff a lot of credit. He noticed this, and it is why we changed our marketing and our internal philosophy from being whatever we were, a platform agnostic front-end interface design company, mm-hmm. to digital change management.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So Jeff, you carried that on after Razorfish, but talk about that transition. I mean, what did you see, or what did it feel like a survival thing for you, or like a sales thing? Like what shifted you in that direction?
As you started to look at where the strategic value was in delivering services, it wasn't just in the creation aspect of it, but it was in the internal organization around a digital business. And again, so creating these digital businesses, you couldn't just create the pretty front end or even the technology that connected the pretty front end to the back end. You could, and you could sell it.
And a lot of people did. I mean, that was, a lot of people did.
And that's a great business, I guess, or it was web design, if you will. But what we then built out was an entire army of people that could help navigate that change management exercise, that could help bring those organizations together, that could get them focused on the kind of business process, the kind of technology integration, and then the kind of marketing and support that you needed to build out a true digital business. And so digital change management, which we notoriously stumbled over explaining on 60 Minutes, it is and was a thing. And you needed all of those things to line up to be successful. And we realized that early on, which was, we're doing these digital front end projects, and like you said, the organizations weren't necessarily lined up to make your project a success. And so who wanted to have a bunch of failed projects on their roster? You wanted projects that were successful. So we needed to build the expertise inside of Razorfish to digitally change manage these companies and help them with BPO and technology integration and marketing and sales support and the digital experiences that we were designing. And all of those things were crucial for success.
Yep.
If you didn't have them all, then you weren't going to succeed.
Yeah.
Right, the journey you went on there, because it's fascinating. I remember I did a stint for a year at Conduit Communications, which was a strategy consulting firm in London. And Chris and Matthias and I are still good friends over it because he hired me. You guys buy Conduit as a strategy consulting firm. There was that Boston-based technology company that you acquired. I think Conduit got acquired by them, and then you acquired them.
Yeah.
Eagle River, we bought Eagle River. We
Yeah.
bought, what was the tech company that Larry Krakauer and those guys came from? I forgot.
Oh, right.
Began with a J, I think.
Yeah.
So it's funny how we both were on this parallel path of getting these additional capabilities, what started off with creative and thinking and making, to your point, Craig, things beautiful, started to morph a little bit more into business operations and changing the way you work and the way you manage your own money and those kinds of things. But it was still changing the world a bit, right?
Yeah. And
just complete aside, my brother called me one day. He goes, I'm going to go work for these guys called Razorfish. He was in London. And I'm moving to San Francisco to work on Cisco.com for them. Do you know them? I'm like, oh, God, because I told them at the time. I'm like, really? You're going to Razorfish?
Yeah, really. I know, right? Well, so what I want to you guys have both done really interesting things since Razorfish, and I feel like every one of these shows we do, I feel like we need another couple of hours, but I know we all have to go. So like at some point we got to just unpack all the stories, like those crazy times in the sort of 96 to 98 were just nuts. We should do another one and just talk about that. But I would love to hear from both of you. You both did really interesting things, and you're both doing interesting things now since then. I would love to just hear from you. What were the lessons that you took from them? Like, what did that time, that phase from kind of mid 90s to early 2000s, like what did that color moving forward? How did that impact how you do what you do now or what you did next? I would love to hear.
Craig is smiling away there. So we should go.
Oh my God, I'm smiling because it's like I got like 100,
right?
Really? No, I mean, like, look, I'll rattle off like little ones, right? Mm-hmm. So, we got a lot of publicity and a lot of press, and we did a lot of interviews, and I learned how to speak in public really well, and I really enjoyed it. I also learned how evil the press can be because they're looking for clickbait, and I learned how to, what media training was really about, and how to like answer questions in a way that it's good for you, and I learned, so I learned that. I learned that. When I first started the company, I told Jeff that I didn't want anyone to work directly for me because I didn't like firing people. It was icky, and I didn't like talking about the salaries. I learned that is ridiculous, and that real business people like do all the things. So I learned how to do that. I learned how important corporate culture is. How making people enjoy what they're doing is important, and how to create
and feel part of something. I think, again, I feel like agency.com and Razorfish had such clear
strong cultures.
Razorfish people, loved Razorfish, and same with agency.com. Like that's a huge one. Like how did that evolve? Like not how did it evolve? How did you maintain that as you grew? Because that was one of the biggest challenges we had, was not having that organic culture bleed out as you grew quickly.
Well, we did, and then we didn't, right? So like for a long time it was pretty easy, because it's like anywhere else you go, you meet people and very quickly you're like, oh, these are my people.
Right.
I get these people.
Yep.
And it's a cliche to say, if you were willing to go grab a beer with them, then maybe you'd be willing to work with them. But it was fairly obvious, especially early on, who was in it for the money, who was in it for the press, and who was in it for the passion and the religion, and who could be flexible and open-minded and who couldn't, and all that. So it was very easy in some ways it was easy to do that. The hard part was to make sure that you engaged in actually being proactive about the culture, like actually having events and lectures, internal lectures, and learning and all that, as opposed to like, oh, we got a bunch of people who think the same way, so we're all going to be good. Like it's any set of relationships, any group dynamic, you need to work on it. But you're right. As time went on, and as we acquired companies that had different cultures, and as we acquired different skill sets, and as, the land grabbers and the people who are just like, I hear I can make a lot of money on the internet, so can you hire me?
Yeah. I've been out of school for a year. I want $150,000.
It becomes harder and harder to maintain that.
Yeah.
So you were going on some of the learnings, Craig. What else that you're applying today? And it'd be interesting to, first of all, what are you doing today, and what's going on?
So I have I'm currently the CEO of a company called New York Cruise Lines. We're a marine-based sightseeing and transportation company in New York. We're most well known for owning and operating so celebrating the 75th year this year.
In fact, I've got one of the shows with the show we did with Eamon and Andy from Magic. We talked about, we did a Circle Line cruise like in 97 or 98, and it was talked about for years.
I still have the pictures. I have
it all comes around.
Yeah. Send them back. So I'm working in a company that is very different. We've got hard assets. I was talking to Kyle about this earlier. It's like we had no assets back then. We had a couple of crappy PCs, and we had millions of dollars worth of steel boats. But I'm using my experience in communications and marketing and management and all the things that I've done throughout my life. So that's what I'm doing now. But I've learned, look, I think with age, we all sort of learn what's really important to ourselves and what isn't. So, we were never in it for the money, which I think we sort of proved by not ever selling any stock.
I actually bought more.
Which was kind of silly. But I mean, this was not. we figured we would be in it for the right reasons, and the money would come when it was supposed to. But I think when you're 30-ish and you're starting a company, starting a family, starting whatever, you're trying to establish who you are and chase a lot of things. I don't think that the things that I thought were important back then in my life are as much as they were. But I think, if you're just talking about entrepreneurialism, knowing what you're good at, what you're not good at, what you need to do, what you don't need to do, what being a boss is like, and what being an employee is like, all those things, you can't really put fingers on them. It's not precision.
It's like MBA by osmosis, right? Rather than degree. How about for you, Jeff? What you're doing OneDrop now. Talk about what you're up to now, but also catch us up on what stuff did you carry forward?
So today I'm the CEO of a company called OneDrop. We're at our core a data science company utilizing data science to help people make better decisions with their chronic conditions. We're in health tech. I produce hardware and wearables and a huge data science platform, all delivering telehealth services through your mobile phone.
Congrats on the Bayer deal.
Yeah. Congrats on you. You've done some big deals recently. Yeah. You're killing it. Congratulations.
Thank you. Really, it's all credit to the OneDrop team and really the hard work that they put into it. I'm the lucky guy.
Wait. We got to stop right there. That's a different Jeff than I knew.
I know.
It's all credit to the OneDrop team. No way. No, I'm just kidding.
And how many former Razorfish people are on the OneDrop?
Yeah,
a bunch of former Razorfish people at OneDrop. I've been fortunate enough to work with some really talented people over the years, the last couple of decades, and fortunately, some of them are still willing to stick with me.
That's great.
So that's been great. Oz Lubling, shout out. He was the first Razorfish employee. He was also employee number 1 at OneDrop.
Cool.
So just and our offices are in Silicon Alley. Our offices are I'm on 166 Mercer, which is right in the heart of where we were when we started Razorfish.
Yeah.
Just to say, there's a lot of good energy and a lot of good juju there.
That's awesome.
But you went from Razorfish to, then you did your own thing, right, in Austin? Because I work with a couple of colleagues at Ogilvy who worked at the Dachis group for a while. I mean, you took a lot of what you learned there and you were applying it again. And it seems like you've taken some and then even grown it into this new product company that you've created. But it's all about the product. It seems to be the DNA, right, Jeff?
Yeah. I mean, I've evolved over the years and taken what I've learned and brought it to the next thing, as we all have. I would hope to say that I I was able to grow over the years, as opposed to staying stagnant, doing just one thing. I hope that's the case. I hope I can continue to grow too and learn. I think, when we look back on those times, I mean, hell, we were in our 20s when we started Razorfish, and you don't necessarily know a whole lot in your 20s. Just to be honest with you, you might have some raw talent, you might be able to do a lot of things, but
you don't know things, but you say you know things, which that was part of the trick back then, was like, we just knew that much more than everyone else, but acted like we knew. So, yeah.
I mean, we did know a bunch of things, and we had vision and passion and focus and determination and grit and fortitude and all of those things that got us, sort of to build what we built. And so, I'm grateful for all that. But now I think, you looking back a lot, there's so much that we didn't know, so much that we had to learn. And I'm really just grateful for some of the scars and the life lessons that have kind of flowed out of all those experiences. I don't think you get to be present and in the moment and living a life that is true if you're not able to, having gone through, a lot of those types of experiences. And so, I feel just immensely grateful for all of that, really.
I remember that a lot, especially those first 5 years, that Jeff and I would step back a lot. And I'm curious, Kyle, if you and Chan did this, but we would step back frequently and look at each other and be like, really? Are we like, we just have to take a minute. Like, we're working really hard and we're having a lot of fun and we're getting beaten up, but like, you could tell a totally different story. There were a couple of schmoes from Minneapolis who happened to be in the middle of one of the most exciting world changes ever, right? We are in New York City at the turn of a millennium, working for the biggest companies in the world, radically changing them, walking to work, having a good time. Like, who are we to be able to be part of this?
Yeah. Well, that's the name of the show. You Should Have Been There is not like a, we're better, you should have been there. It was more like, oh my God, you should have been there. Like, it was this wonder thing. We had this kind of internal saying, which was, this just might work. And it was kind of this tongue-in-cheek thing. Like, we would win this huge piece of business and we'd just look at each other and go, this just might work, because it truly started from this place of like, well, let's try this and let's try that. And then it went so quick that it was, for me, it was a full 5 years of wonder and just sort of hanging on for dear life. And so yeah, Chan and I did that a lot. And one of the other things I wanted to bring up, because it sounds like you've got a similar thing, when we have our reunions, like the relationships that were built back then, it was so intense. Like I have some of my best friends, and like when I talk to them, like even talking to you guys right now, we haven't talked in years, and I feel like instant connection. So do you find the same thing with the Razorfish crew, that culture is just there?
And some of them probably, my brother still refers to himself as a fishy. I don't know what that's all about. But if you look at both companies, I think you look at the people that came through, and I bet you if you track them, they're all doing incredible things. They're all doing incredible things, right?
They are. And we got a reunion.
Mafia is deep and wide, and we're. When I look at who's doing what, whether it's at Fjord or at McKinsey, or E&Y or Deloitte, or all of the major digital consulting firms in the world are populated with leadership from Razorfish. And so we feel just an immense amount of pride in the folks that we were able to work with, and what they've gone on to do, far greater than anything I'll ever do.
Yeah, totally. Have you guys tried to recreate what you had back then? Because I feel like that's been my sort of lifelong thing since then. It's sort of failed attempt after failed attempt to try to recreate the magic that was that thing. And I think part of the magic was just the time. We were at a time in history, but yeah, I think I like to think about it as new magic, So,
Jeff, I think you're in an area that actually is, because I'm in the same area. So I feel in health tech and some of the startups I work with, I feel that sense of change. It's not as big as what was in 1996 when I got involved with this stuff, but I do feel in the work that I'm doing in health tech, which is what you're doing, that there's this sense of something big is happening, something is changing. And maybe it's because it's the industry and how archaic it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get me started, but I mean, but here I go. Every single industry on the planet has been affected by digital in a profound way.
Yeah.
Convenience and need to a variety of types of services and products that have never been accessible to people before. Every single industry on the planet, except health.
Yeah.
Except healthcare.
Yeah.
And so, from my perspective, there is so much opportunity in the last bastion of digital transformation that has to occur. The last bastion of digital change management is really in healthcare. And in my mind, it's not happening from within the healthcare industry. You saw it even fail this week in terms of shutting down the big company approach. Why? Because they brought healthcare thinking to try to revolutionize healthcare.
Right. Yeah.
I think it has to happen in a different way. And we think self-care, delivered through mobile phones is really where the revolution is going, and providing affordable, accessible, effective ways in controlling your body and in staying healthy so that you don't have to tap into the healthcare system is really where things are headed. And I couldn't be more excited about the new magic. The new magic is here.
Amen, brother. That's awesome.
Exactly.
Hey, listen, I really do want to go on for another hour, but I think we all have day jobs here, so
we gotta go.
Craig's the CEO. He's going to go do CEO stuff.
I got to go do that stuff. But listen, I just first of all, thank you for being our first guest of 2021.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for the kinship we've had over the years. I really appreciate who you guys are, what you've built, and that you came on here and shared all this with us, because I think it can make a difference for people to hear about what happened and how you did it and all that sort of stuff. So
what I'd like to do another show is you and Chan and Craig and Jeff, and I do all the interviewing.
Oh, I like it. Okay, good.
Right. We should do that.
Because then we can tell some stories.
Yeah, exactly.
we didn't even touch Miami. So all right, gentlemen.
We want to touch Miami.
Yeah.
No.
Thanks for having us, Kyle. Thanks for doing this. It's great. We agree. Stories, the true stories should be told, and same thing. I know. I speak for Jeff. We feel a kinship with everyone who was in that in the early days, and respect all the work that was done, and more importantly, really respect this thing. So thanks for doing it, and thanks for having us. And
thanks for joining us, guys.
Happy New Year.
Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Happy New Year. Cheers, everyone.
Happy New Year.